We had sort of record numbers watching the first episode of season 4, and it's nice. I mean, we get the way we ended things with season 3, with sort of dismantling everything and starting over again, was a very risky choice narratively, and unfortunately, people have it seems really want to know what the next chapter in the story is, and we've had a really good time telling that story throughout filming season 4. What we're trying to do is establish how turbulent really everything was, not only in the lives of these characters, but it's also reflected in the kind of mood of the country at the time. There was a massive, massive seismic shift in mood, as well as culture, as well as demographics, as well as race relations, sexual relations, gender relations. All of these things, which were sort of simmering in the first few seasons, have now come full boil. And all of our people are dealing with things that have been simmering for 3 seasons that have now come to a full boil. So I think in the larger, the macro sense of the series, I hope people realize that this was the season where kind of everything came to a head. How we resolve that, I still don't know, but I hope it will be fun to watch and interesting. Don was very much going through a lot of changes in his personal life, and his family life sort of imploded on him, and that was very much being mirrored in his professional life. And so the sort of implosion of both of those long-standing relationships set the scene for a very exciting, the possibility of a very exciting 4th season. If Don was a character that everything always ended up working out perfectly for, I think the show would be significantly less interesting. And I'm happy the way it's been going, and I'm happy to play the character the way it's written. I think that Don is pretty profoundly depressed when we pick things up at the beginning of this season, season 4, and I think the foundation of that depression is his dissatisfaction with his personal life and his family life. It's hard as an actor to kind of to ever judge any of your characters, so I'm always on my own guy's side. But he is misunderstood and comes from a terrible background, and is very much by nature a survivor and a self-made, literally self-made man. And I do think people, especially this season, are realizing that this guy has had to suffer a lot, and most of it is by his own hand. He has definitely made his own bed. There was a sense at the end of season 3 of Don finally being rid of this marriage and finally being rid of that relationship and finally sort of almost cathartically starting over. And yet, as we all as human beings sometimes find out, that when you get what you thought you wanted, it really isn't what you really wanted at all. And he is struggling mightily with reconciling his new place in not only his professional world, but as a single man in New York City of a certain age. And that's very, very difficult for him, much more difficult than I think he thought. Don, for all of his indiscretions, to put it mildly, has very rarely crossed the line of being inappropriate or indiscreet at work, and or with people from work, and that's certainly changed this season. He always lived in a very ethically gray area anyway, but that gray is getting much darker, and the gray is seeping into way more of his life than I think he has control over, and that's part of what is servicing a lot of the dramatic, as a lot of the dramatic engine for Don in the show is sort of like his ship is listing badly and he needs to right it quickly, and we're not sure if he has the capacity to do that. Part of Don's pitch, I think, to Roger and Cooper and some of the other people that he brought with him was we have an opportunity to start something of our own and to take it in a direction that we want to go, not in a direction that the corporate parent or whoever is making the decisions 4 or 5 pay grades over our head wants to do. And that's part of what fuels Don's creativity is the idea of having creative freedom and the ability to make decisions at that level. And so it is exciting. And there's a wealth of opportunity out there, and Don's relationship in the business is such that people are willing to, they want to work with him. They want to see what his creativity can bring to bear. When you don't have the sort of monolithic influence that a larger company has, it becomes much more difficult to fight for those clients and to give those clients as much attention as you'd like, especially when you're only one person. He said he has a line in the first episode, I think, of season 4 when he says, these bigger companies can throw 3 floors of creative at this problem for weeks, and we don't have that kind of manpower. So it needs to be much more precise and much more effective in the time that they do have. The relationship's shifted in a way that it's no longer Don and a bunch of underlings, it's now Don and a bunch of coworkers. And I think that's another tricky series of relationships that he needs to learn how to work with. And whether it's working with Pete, who is now a partner, or working with Peggy, who is now much more of an independent copywriter with much more confidence and much more of a comfort level in relating her ideas to Don. It is much more a relationship of equals rather than a relationship of superiors and inferiors, and that's not the most comfortable place for Don to be in either. He's used to saying something, having it listened to, and having it be sort of executed, and he is no longer in that position. Don's relationship with alcohol shifts pretty significantly in the 4th season, and as I said, he is in many ways very depressed, and alcohol and depression go very well together in many ways, and they go very badly together in many ways as well. And I think we see both sides of that as the season progresses. Don does not have the stabilizing influence of a family homestead to return to. Not that that was ever, in his mind, a tremendously stabilizing influence, but we see, I think, in retrospect, it was a port in a storm. and that doesn't exist anymore. So he is, if I can extend the terrible nautical reference illusion, he is very much a man adrift. And when you come home to an empty home, and the only thing there is more booze or more loneliness, those spirals get deeper and deeper, and I think that Don is very much heading down that path. I think Don very much wants somebody in his life to share his life with, and I don't know who that is. I don't know if he knows who that is. I think that the reason his relationship with his wife fell apart was because he was not emotionally honest with her, nor was he, in fact, point of fact, honest with her. The whole relationship was founded on a lie. It's going to be tricky for Don. He's got a lot of questions to answer about himself and a lot of work to do and a lot of honest accounting to do of what his mistakes have been and what he's going to do to repair those relationships. And I think at a certain fundamental level, he very much loves his children. He may, at some level, love his ex-wife, but he knows that those relationships are pretty broken and need to be tended to before anything else can happen. And I think until he does that, he's destined to be lonely. It all taking place around Christmas and a traditional time for self-evaluation and being near your family and being surrounded by loved ones. And where does Don end up but at work? And Lane, who's going through his own version of sort of disconnect with his loved ones, is there as well. All that either of these two men have is each other and work. And that leads very much into a sort of ages-old ritual that men do when they're sad and together, which is going out and getting in trouble and getting drunk and ending up with women they probably shouldn't end up with. So it was very fun to shoot, and I think it's a very fun, funny kind of look into another side of both of those characters. It's as if somebody gave you great expectations, but they only gave it to you one chapter at a time. And you had to wait 2 weeks before every chapter was given to you. Our story very much progresses like a novel, and threads are dropped and threads are picked up, and new characters come in and old characters come back, and at the end of the day, we're telling a story that takes place in New York City, and people move and people come in and come out, but people still live in the same neighborhoods, so you run into people back and forth and here and there, and it's like getting the next chapter, and it's always very exciting to see what the next chapter holds and what the progression will be, or the regression of these characters. They're generally very complimentary. It's nice to know that there are fans out there that really respond to the show, and people that for some reason really like Don Draper or really feel for Don Draper or want him to succeed. I can understand the sort of wanting him to be a better person, but I always feel like I'm disappointing anybody that comes up and says, when are you gonna change? And I'm like, I don't think anytime soon, sorry. We've been very fortunate. The first 3 seasons of the show that we have been recognized so across the board by the Academy, and it does feel nice. Obviously, it's not the reason we do the show. We we're very proud of the show and would remain so if it was broadcast in a vacuum. But the fact that it is and has been recognized so thoroughly for all the people that work so hard on the show, all the departments and the camera department and hair and makeup and costumes and all of the individual performances. It's an incredible honor to be recognized again and again. It's very nice.